People speaking out these days against Nintendo are typically being called haters. So let's be clear about something. I am absolutely a hater. I want the Switch 2 to fail. I want Pokemon to fail. And I want Game Freak to fail. All of it. The entire corrupt, lazy, greedy empire, I want it to fail. I want Nintendo to fail so badly that they have to come out and say, we're sorry. In our hubris and arrogance, we exploited your loyalty for profit. We severely damaged a hobby about which you are deeply passionate. We can't change that. But we hope you give us the opportunity to change and to help heal the gaming world from the ghoulish wounds we have inflicted on it. Of course, that's not likely to happen. But there once was a company that saved the video game industry. A company that fought tooth and nail to bring gaming back from the dead after the 1983 crash. A company that gave us Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and countless hours of joy. And then that company decided that joy wasn't profitable enough. So today we're going to talk about how Nintendo transformed from a beloved game developer into a corporate predator that would make EA look like a charity organization. And yes, I said that. EA. Because at least EA is honest about being evil. They're not out here wearing a Mario costume while picking your pocket, and while their fans say they're not evil, they're just misunderstood. You're just being a hater. This is going to be a long one. We're going chronologically through Nintendo's descent into corporate hell, from kinda greedy all the way to genuinely destroying people's lives. So buckle up. It's going to get ugly. Let's start with the man who represented everything Nintendo used to be about, Satoru Iwata. Iwata famously said,
"On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer."
That's not corporate PR speak. That's a man who genuinely loved games. This was a guy who took a 50% pay cut, 50%, during the Wii U era to avoid laying off employees. Personally debugged Super Smash Bros. Melee to make sure that it shipped on time. He analyzed Pokemon's battle system in a week without documentation to help create Pokemon Stadium. He actually played video games. When was the last time you think the current Nintendo executives booted up a Nintendo Switch for fun? Give that some thought. Iwata believed in making games accessible to everyone. His Blue Ocean strategy brought gaming to people who had never touched a controller. Your grandma playing Wii Sports, that was Iwata's vision. Expanding the gaming population, not exploiting it. Then Iwata died in July 2015, cancer, 55 years old. And Nintendo said, you know what this game development company really needs? A banker. Tatsumi Kimishima, 27 years at Sanwa Bank. His vision for Nintendo? Takeda and Miyamoto will be in charge of software development while I control administration. Translation, you nerds make the games, I'll make the money. Is Kimishima even a gamer? Good question, because there's zero evidence he's ever played a video game in his entire life. The man went from counting money at a bank to counting money at Nintendo. But hey, at least Kimishima was a transition figure, because in 2018, Nintendo promoted Shintaro Furukawa, who came from, you guessed it, Nintendo's mobile division. You know, the division focused on turning beloved franchises into gacha gambling machines. From a game developer who took pay cuts to save jobs, to a banker, to a mobile monetization specialist. That's not a corporate succession. That's a hostile takeover. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Nintendo's greed is new. It's because Iwata died. No, unfortunately, Nintendo has been anti-consumer since the goddamn NES. Lately, they've just been more brazen about it. Back in the 80s, Nintendo invented artificial scarcity as a business model. They deliberately limited cartridge production to create shortages. Third-party developers had to buy cartridges exclusively from Nintendo at inflated prices. And when some companies like Tengen tried to get around this, Nintendo took them to court. The NES lockout chip, that wasn't about quality control, that was about total market domination. They would announce games and then delay or limit production, creating feeding frenzies. But there's so much more than that, so let's talk about Nintendo's relationship with optical media, because it's a perfect case study in cutting off your nose to spite your face. Nintendo, of course, famously partnered with Sony to make a CD-ROM add-on for the SNES. Then Nintendo looked at Sony and said, actually, we're going to back out of this deal and partner with Philips instead. So, you know what Sony did? They made the PlayStation, the console that destroyed Nintendo's market dominance. Nintendo literally created their biggest competitor because they couldn't play nice with others. While Sony and Sega embraced CDs, which were cheaper, higher capacity, easier to manufacture, Nintendo stuck with cartridges through the N64 era. And why? Loading times, they said. Durability, they claimed. BS. It was about maintaining their cartridge monopoly and higher profit margins. Third-party developers fled to PlayStation because Nintendo cartridges were expensive, limited, and Nintendo controlled everything. Final Fantasy VII, it could have been on N64. We would have never gotten the epic game that we got because it would have had to been scaled down significantly, but Final Fantasy VII should have been an N64 game. Instead, Squaresoft took one look at Nintendo's cartridge nonsense and said, we need 3 CDs for this game, so you guys have fun with these cartridges. The GameCube finally used discs in the most Nintendo way possible. When Nintendo finally adopted optical media with the GameCube, did they use standard DVDs like everyone else? No! They used proprietary mini-discs that couldn't play movies, couldn't play music, and couldn't do anything but play GameCube games. The PS2 was a DVD player. The Xbox was a DVD player. The GameCube was a slightly less functional N64. It was pure spite. Nintendo was basically saying, fine, we'll use discs, but we're going to make sure you get nothing else out of it, and you're not going to like it. Even with the Wii U, Nintendo used proprietary discs instead of standard Blu-rays. No multimedia, no standard formats, just Nintendo being Nintendo, controlling everything, helping no one. From the NES to the Switch 2, Nintendo has consistently chosen expensive, limited proprietary formats over consumer-friendly standards. Every single time. The big news these days, the big game from Nintendo, of course, is Pokemon Legends CA. So let's talk about that, because this is where Nintendo's greed reaches truly impressive levels. For years, Pokemon fans begged for Mega Evolutions for the Kalos starters, Chestnut, Delphox, and Greninja. These Pokemon debuted in X and Y, the games that introduced Mega Evolution, but somehow didn't get Mega forms themselves. And never having played Pokemon X and Y, seeing that was so shocking to me that I had to go back through my notes and fact-check it to make sure that what I had written down was actually true. The starters for X and Y did not have Mega Evolutions in X and Y. Fans wanted this for a decade, so Nintendo finally announced them for Pokemon Legends CA, and everyone celebrated, finally! Nintendo listened to the fans. Then we saw the fine print. The Mega Stones for these starters, Chestnutite, Delphoxite, and Greninjite, cannot be attained through regular gameplay. Let's go over that again. They cannot normally be obtained through regular gameplay. You know how you get them? You play ranked online battles. For Season 1, you get Greninjite. Season 2, Delphoxite. Season 3, Chestnutite. And if you don't like competitive Pokemon, you just want to play through the story with your favorite starter having a Mega Evolution, too damn bad. Get good or get f***ed. But wait, it gets better. To play ranked online battles, you need, say it with me, Nintendo Switch Online. That's $3.99 a month. And since each Mega Stone is in a different season, you need at least $12 in subscriptions just to get all 3, for content that should have been in the base game. Let's be honest, this should have been in Pokemon X and Y. You're paying a subscription fee to grind in competitive battles for items that unlock features of Pokemon you already own in a game you already bought. That's not DLC, it's extortion. But Nintendo wasn't done. They also announced Mega Raichu X and Mega Raichu Y. Cool! Everyone said Raichu finally gets some love. Which is crazy because Pikachu and Raichu have been getting love since the Kanto games. Well, the Raichu evolutions are locked behind the $30 Mega Dimension DLC. $30. For reference, Palworld, the entire game that does everything Pokemon Legends Arceus tried to do, costs $30. That's for the complete game. Nintendo wants $30 for a DLC pack that includes 2 Mega Evolutions that absolutely should be in the base game. So let's do some math. The base game for Pokemon Legends ZA, $70. Mega Dimension DLC, $30. Nintendo Switch Online for 3 months, $12. Total, $112. $112 for the complete Pokemon experience. That's nearly 4 times the cost of Palworld. And you know, some parents are going to buy this for their kids, not realizing that they need subscriptions and DLC to use the Pokemon their child wants. It's predatory, it's disgusting, and it's by design. In April of 2025, Nintendo pushed out a system update with something called virtual game cards. Don't worry, Nintendo said, we're making digital games work more like physical games. You can share them with family. And again, everyone read the fine print and said, wait, what the f*** did you just do? For 8 years, from 2018 to 2025, the Switch had a beautiful, consumer-friendly feature. One console was primary and could play any of its games offline. You could have any number of secondary consoles online and play your games on those, which meant that 2 people could play the same digital game online simultaneously. This was perfect for families. Dad could play Splatoon in the living room while kid played Splatoon in his bedroom. Mom could play Animal Crossing on the family Switch, while daughter played on her own Switch. One purchase, 2 happy family members playing together. And it wasn't a loophole. It wasn't an exploit. Nintendo documented this on their official FAQ. It was a feature. Microsoft does this, Sony does this, it's standard. Virtual game cards destroyed this completely. Digital games now work like physical cartridges. Only one person can use them at a time. You have to eject the game from one console to play it on another. You cannot play the same game online together anymore. Families that played Minecraft together, gone. Splatoon with siblings, gone. Mario Kart with your kid, buy another $80 copy. But wait, Nintendo said, the old system is still available. Just turn on online license settings. This was a bald-faced lie. The old system Nintendo claims still exists is a crippled shadow, because one console has to be in airplay mode, completely offline. It only works for single-player games. The online multiplayer that families actually used, that's gone. Nintendo marketed virtual game cards as adding flexibility while removing the most important feature, playing together online. Nintendo made more money during the Switch generation than they made from 1981 to 2016 in total. They're not hurting for cash. But they looked at families happily playing Splatoon together with one digital copy and said, you know what? That's not right. We need more money from you. We need 2 $60 purchases here. They destroyed a feature that helped families play together. The thing Nintendo claims to care about most. Because greed. Nintendo's evil antics go so much beyond that. Before Nintendo started just striking creator content, they tried something even more insulting. Making creators pay them for the privilege of promoting Nintendo games. In 2015, Nintendo famously launched the Nintendo Creators Program. The pitch: you can make videos about Nintendo games, and we'll even let you keep some of your ad revenue. How generous! Here's what Nintendo offered. Individual videos, you could keep 60% of your ad revenue, which meant Nintendo took 40%. For your entire channel, if your entire channel was Nintendo only, you could keep 70% of your ad revenue, and Nintendo would only take 30%. And Nintendo reserved the right to change those percentages arbitrarily at any time. Let's be clear about what this meant. You make a video, you edit it, you upload it, you build an audience. And Nintendo takes 40% of your earnings for the crime of showing off their game? Every other major gaming company, Sony, Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA, Indies, they allow 100% monetization because they understand that videos about their games are free marketing. Nintendo decided free marketing wasn't free enough. They wanted a cut. But it wasn't just about money. Every video needed Nintendo's approval, which took up to 3 business days. If you wanted to register a channel, all content had to be Nintendo only. Nintendo collected all ad revenue first, and then paid you monthly. And you had to publicly state that Nintendo wasn't endorsing you. This was a protection racket. Nice YouTube channel you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it. Better pay up. So obviously, creators were furious. By 2018, Nintendo quietly shut it down after years of mockery. Even they couldn't sustain such obvious exploitation. But did they learn? Oh, goodness, no. After the creator program failed, Nintendo decided that subtlety was overrated and just started striking content creators. Retro Game Core took multiple strikes for showing emulated Nintendo games. Point Crow had strikes for Breath of the Wild content. Gilvasunner had over 1,300 takedown notices for Nintendo music. Deoxys Prime, 500 plus strikes for video game music. Domtendo, false claims that nearly destroyed his 1.5 million subscriber channel. These creators weren't pirating games. They were promoting them, building communities, creating hype. And Nintendo said, "How dare you make people excited about our products without paying us?" Sadly, this doesn't mark the end of Nintendo's BS online antics. On September 18, 2018, under Kimishima's corporate leadership, Nintendo Switch Online became a paid service, $3.99 a month or $19.99 a year, for online play that had been free since the Switch launched. Okay, everyone said, if we're paying now, at least the online experience will improve, right? It did not improve. Nintendo started charging for online play but changed nothing. It still used peer-to-peer connections instead of dedicated servers. It still used delay-based netcode instead of modern rollback netcode. It still required a phone app for voice chat. And it still offered worse functionality online than Xbox Live from 2002. They just added a paywall to the existing broken system. Anyone who has ever played Super Mario Maker 2 Online's multiplayer will tell you, it's so bad, it's legendary. There's roughly a 1 in 3 chance of just completely unplayable lag. The netcode matches the speed of the person with the most lag. So if one person is using janky Burger King Wi-Fi while waiting on their Whopper, everyone suffers. And of course, there's nothing enjoyable about having to wait a full minute just for the starting countdown to finish. People literally started petitions begging Nintendo to fix the netcode. And of course, Nintendo's response was silent. And it's not just Super Mario Maker 2. How about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's online Terra raids? I've seen people complain that they can do one move roughly every 2 minutes. It's so laggy and so bad. The raids just straight up don't work a lot of the time. And memory leaks cause performance to degrade the longer you play. You're paying $20 a year for the privilege of watching PowerPoint presentations pretending to be Pokemon battles. And the fighting game community literally started a hashtag #FixUltimateOnline for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The netcode is just horrible. Input delay is terrible. Smash would still be unplayable even with improvements. Professional players avoid online tournaments because the netcode is so bad. This is for a fighting game where frame-perfect inputs matter. Nintendo said, nah, delay-based netcode from 2004, that's fine. To summarize everything, Nintendo charges $20 a year for online service that offers no dedicated servers, uses outdated netcode, requires a phone app for voice chat, and performs worse than free alternatives. Steam has free online. Epic Games, free online. Nintendo charges you $20 to experience lag in first-party games. We mentioned artificial scarcity earlier, and we need to circle back to that because it's a key piece in Nintendo's corporate mindset. And it's been happening for a very long time. In 2014, Nintendo released Amiibo, little toy figures that unlock content in games. It's basically DLC. It's physical DLC. Immediately, certain figures became impossible to find, like Wii Fit Trainer, Villager, and Marth. these $13 toys ended up selling for $70+ on eBay. It was a scalper's paradise. Nintendo, creators of Mario, claimed that they were surprised by demand and couldn't keep up. For years, wave after wave of amiibo, same shortages, same surprise by demand. You're telling me that Nintendo, a company that sold 100+ million Wiis, couldn't figure out how to manufacture enough toys? Please. How about the NES Classic? The NES Classic is the perfect example of Nintendo's manufacturer scarcity strategy. In 2016, they released the NES Classic for $60. It immediately sold out. Scalpers sold them online for $200 to $500. Demand was insane. In 2017, after selling 2.3 million units in 5 months, Nintendo discontinued it. They didn't discontinue it because demand dropped. They discontinued it while demand was astronomical. There was no business logic. Nintendo made $0 from the $500 eBay sales. They just stopped making them. Because f*** you, that's why. And then, get this, they released the SNES Classic a few months later and did the exact same thing. Oh no, we couldn't possibly have predicted demand. They absolutely could have predicted demand. Super Mario 3D All-Stars introduced the concept on a digital scale, and it reached a new level of absurdity. Artificial scarcity for digital products. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a collection of Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, was available from September 18, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. After that, gone. Even the digital version was discontinued. Digital products with infinite supply, discontinued. Nintendo created artificial urgency for products that cost nothing to continue selling. It was FOMO marketing at its most cynical, fear of missing out. It was an exploitation of people's fear of missing out. And industry insiders confirmed, artificial scarcity drives impulsive sales. Nintendo looked at Disney's vault strategy and said, what if we did that, but for digital products? Then, of course, there was Super Mario Bros. 35. It was a battle royale version of the original Super Mario Bros. It was fun. People loved it. I never actually got a chance to play it, regrettably, because I look at videos online of people playing it and it looks so fun. Oh my god, it looks fun. Well, Nintendo removed it from the eShop on March 31st, 2021. Why did they remove it? Well, because it was for the 35th anniversary. The 35th anniversary, not the 30th, not the 40th, the 35th. Because that's such a meaningful milestone. The game could have stayed up forever. It cost Nintendo nothing to leave it available. They could have renamed it Super Mario Bros. Royale and kept the party going. Instead, they deleted it for artificial scarcity, because Nintendo hates joy and they hate you. For a very long time, Nintendo has wanted to control everything in regard to their games. They want to control how you play their games. And because of this, they don't just hate pirates. They don't just hate emulation. They hate people who enjoy their games wrong. Tears of the Kingdom speedrunners discovered advanced techniques like zuggling, which is frame-perfect bow manipulation for one-hit boss kills. I'd never even heard of this until I was doing research for this video. Auto-build cancel slide is another. Flying on wooden boards like magic carpets. Again, I've played 250 hours of Tears of the Kingdom. I've never encountered either of these techniques. And that's because these techniques require extensive skill to use. They don't affect any other players. Only speedrunners put in the effort to master using these skills, and they're so complex that you can't stumble across them accidentally. And of course, because speedrunners were making this content, they were being used by content creators promoting the game. So what was Nintendo's response? Patch 1.1.2 systematically removed them all. The speedrunning community said Nintendo went berserk and just nuked techniques that were way too OP. OP compared to what? They're single-player techniques that don't affect anyone else. But Nintendo saw players having fun in unintended ways and said, not on my watch. And Nintendo does hate emulation. They hate video game preservation. The Yuzu emulator was forced to shut down through legal intimidation. Wii U Jinx was pressured to cease operation, and ROM sites. Over the last decade, there have been aggressive takedowns of sites preserving gaming history. Nintendo is waging war against the very concept of being able to play old games. They don't sell many of these games anymore. They're not losing money. They just don't want you to have access to gaming history unless they control it. It's digital book burning. Games like Ultima Exodus are never going to be released on Nintendo Switch Online. They're never going to be available for me to play other than buying a $400 copy on eBay. On the subject of piracy and Nintendo's legal activity, Nintendo is basically a law firm at this point that moonlights in making games. We talked about Palworld previously. It wasn't long ago that I bought it and just fell in love with it. It's everything that Pokemon Legends Arceus or Arceus, whatever, should have been. Well, Nintendo is suing Palworld. Not for copyright infringement. That would be hard to prove. No, Nintendo is suing Palworld for patent infringement. And there's been some updates to this case that I haven't gone through yet. It looks like Nintendo is losing, but regardless, the patents that Nintendo is suing Palworld over, there's three main things. 1, throwing objects to capture creatures. 2, switching between different rideable creatures. 3, summoning creatures for battle. Nintendo is trying to patent basic game mechanics that have existed for decades. Summoning creatures for battle long predates Pokemon. Nintendo amended its patent claims in the middle of the lawsuit. They updated their patents. They resubmitted them in the middle of this lawsuit in order to make them more weaponizable against Palworld. And patent experts, of course, called this bizarre and desperate. It's straight up patent trolling. Nintendo is trying to patent mechanics so basic that thousands of games would be affected, to say nothing of the millions of mods that exist for games. Because Nintendo says, mods don't count as content. Mods aren't art. It's not about protecting their IP. It's about killing competition through legal warfare. And why? Because Palworld proved that a smaller studio could make a better Pokemon game for $30 than Nintendo could for $70. Nintendo can't compete, so they're trying to sue Palworld out of existence. This is the same company that in June of this year contacted RTA in Japan, a 9-year-old charity speedrunning event that raises money for Doctors Without Borders. Nintendo demanded they remove all Nintendo games from their August event. Let's repeat that. Nintendo shut down charity speedrunning. RTA has been running for 9 years. They use Nintendo games, among others, to raise money for Doctors Without Borders during a global health crisis. Nintendo said 9 years of unauthorized use. Take them down. They demanded individual permission for each game, made the demands too close to the event for approval, and essentially killed Nintendo content at a charity event. This isn't about protecting IP. It's about control. And it's exercised in the most evil way I can think of. You prevented your games from appearing at a charity event meant to raise money for Doctors Without Borders in the name of control. Nintendo looked at people raising money for doctors treating sick children and said, "But did they pay us? That's not corporate policy. That's moral bankruptcy." So let's take a deep breath. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Because we're about to talk about Nintendo at its absolute worst. Everything I've said so far, it's horrible. But the next thing, this is where Nintendo crosses the line from greedy corporate monster into an actual devil. This is where they become actually evil. Gary Bowser, yes, that's his real name, was part of Team Executor, a hacking group that made mod chips for Nintendo consoles. These chips let people play pirated games, and that's illegal. So in the corporate world, in the legal system, Gary Bowser deserved some kind of consequences. But let me tell you what Nintendo did to him. Gary Bowser was found guilty and sentenced to 40 months in federal prison. He served 14 of those months because of how the federal prison system works. I was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison in 2023, and I served about 11 months of that. Gary Bowser also had to pay $14.5 million in damages. And that means Nintendo is going to take 25 to 30% of this guy's gross monthly income for the rest of his life. And that's bad. But even when he was in prison, and he had a job in prison, when I was in prison, I was a cook. And I made, I think, $35 a month. Gary Bowser made about the same amount of money in prison. And evil, greedy Nintendo took his prison income, the money that he needed to use to buy deodorant, because they don't give you that in prison, to buy soap, because they don't give you that in prison, to buy razors, toothbrushes, toothpaste, food, to buy all of these things that you need in federal prison. Nintendo was taking his money that would allow him to make those purchases. Unbelievably evil. And Gary was just the salesman. He wasn't the mastermind. At 54 years old, Gary would need to earn $40 million to pay off this debt to Nintendo. And while he was in prison making this money, Nintendo was taking his $25 a month wages. His health deteriorated in prison due to lack of medical care. And what Nintendo has done to Gary Bowser isn't justice. This is financial slavery. Nintendo deliberately chose to financially torture one man for life to send a message. They could have sought reasonable damages. They could have gone after the actual ringleaders. Instead, they chose to destroy Gary Bowser's life completely and forever. Gary Bowser gets one life, as do we all. One life to live on this world, and that's it. Nintendo owns this man's life. 20 to 35% of everything he makes for the rest of his life goes to Nintendo. Well, Gary is out of prison now, and out of prison, he struggles to afford basic necessities and medical bills. Nintendo takes a percentage of every dollar he earns. So while this man is struggling to pay his rent and to pay his medical bills, Nintendo is standing off there sucking away 25 to 30% of every single dollar he earns. And they're going to continue doing this until he dies. For the rest of his life, Gary Bowser will be in debt to Nintendo for an amount he can never repay. That's not corporate law enforcement. That's corporate sadism. That's corporate evil. And there's no spin you can put on that. I don't care how anti-piracy you are. I don't care how pro-Nintendo you are. There's no justification for this. The only moral thing Nintendo can do at this point is wipe this man's debt. He's served his sentence. You've made the man suffer enough. You've been sucking away his money like a goddamn parasite for the last 10 years. Cut him loose. You've tortured him enough. You've done enough. Leave him alone. But Nintendo won't do that, because Nintendo chooses cruelty. Nintendo wants to be cruel. They chose to make an example out of one man by ruining his life forever. And they sleep fine at night. So let's review. Level 1, Corporate Greed. $112 for the complete Pokemon experience, removing game sharing features and locking controller buttons behind subscriptions. Level 2, Market Manipulation. Artificial scarcity on physical products. Artificial scarcity on digital products. Deliberately creating FOMO in order to drive sales. Level 3, Community Hostility. Taking 30 to 40% of creator revenue. Striking content creators promoting their games, patching out speedrunning techniques. Level 4, Legal Abuse, patent trolling Palworld, mid-lawsuit patent amendments, and trying to patent basic game mechanics that Nintendo didn't create. Level 5, Moral Bankruptcy, shutting down charity speedrunning events, attacking Doctors Without Borders fundraising, and charging for broken online services. Level 6 is pure evil. Financial slavery for Gary Bowser. Lifetime debt that can never be repaid. Deliberate life destruction as corporate policy. Several years ago, it was alleged that Billy Mitchell caused the death of Apollo Legend, that the lawsuit and the financial restitution demanded, ultimately it turned out there was no financial restitution, caused by Carl Jobst spreading misinformation. The rumor was that Billy Mitchell had effectively caused Apollo Legend's death by suing him and just extracting money from him until the stress and the financial strain killed him. That turned out to ultimately not be true. There were no financial damages that Apollo Legend had to pay to Billy Mitchell. But in this case, we have that exact scenario. We have Nintendo sucking Gary Bowser dry as it stresses him out, as Nintendo takes 25 to 30% of his money. Nintendo is doing to Gary Bowser exactly what Carl Jobst accused Billy Mitchell of doing to Apollo Legend. And that's evil. From Iwata's In My Heart, I Am a Gamer to Furukawa's mobile monetization schemes, from a company that took pay cuts to save jobs, to a company that destroys lives to send messages. This isn't about hating Nintendo games. I love Nintendo games. The original Zelda is my favorite game of all time, although this year I've fallen in love with Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and Clair Obscur Expedition 33, so I'm not sure if that really remains the case. But regardless, this isn't about the games Nintendo makes. This is about recognizing that the company that makes those games has lost its soul. It has become completely evil. Nintendo used to create smiles. Now they create suffering. Calculated, deliberate suffering designed to maximize profit and control. Iwata wouldn't recognize this company, and honestly, neither should we. The Nintendo that saved gaming in 1985 is dead. What's wearing its skin is a corporate monstrosity that views you, the player, the fan, the loyal customer, as nothing more than a revenue stream to be optimized. And the worst part? They're getting away with it because people keep buying the hardware, paying the subscriptions, and defending the company because, but Mario is fun. Yeah, Mario is fun. You know what else is fun? Palworld, for $30. With no subscriptions, no DLC gating, no premium features, and no corporate sadism. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is fun. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is fun. Hollow Knight Silksong, also fun. Nintendo wants $112 for Pokemon Legends ZA. Palworld wants $30 for everything. Nintendo destroys creators. Palworld embraces them. Nintendo patches out fun. Palworld encourages creativity. Maybe it's time we stopped rewarding the company that treats us like wallets with Mario-shaped faces. Well, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into corporate evil, subscribe for more gaming industry analysis. Next time, we're going to discuss the best-selling game of 2025 that no one seems to be talking about. NBA 2K26. Why is no one talking about this? And Nintendo, if you're watching, let go of Gary Bowser. Set him free. Wipe out the rest of his debt. That extra $20,000, $30,000 you're going to suck away from him until he dies, let it go. It's not worth it. Let the man live the rest of his life in peace. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that great stuff. And I hope you have a wonderful day.